We are currently living in what you might call AI dog years.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, like every 12 months in the tech space right now feels like it equals about, I don't know, 7 years of normal human progress. That is the sheer velocity we are dealing with today.
It is honestly a staggering acceleration.
Yeah.
And, it completely reframes how we have to look at our daily interactions.
Mhm.
We are not just adapting to, like, a new software update anymore.
Yeah, we're basically inventing the future of socialization as we go.
Exactly. We are building the plane while flying it.
And that actually brings us to the core mission of today's deep dive. We've got this fascinating stack of research to unpack for you. It's based on a really insightful dialogue between a tech CEO who literally spends her life predicting the future of business and a former opera singer.
It's such a wild combination of backgrounds.
Right. A former opera singer who transitioned into this global communication expert, and she's now on the faculty at the Harvard Kennedy School. So if you're listening to this, settle in, grab a drink. We are going into full late-night philosophical mode today.
I love that vibe. I think the philosophical lens is honestly the only way to truly understand this stuff. Because AI isn't just this rigid boardroom tool anymore.
No, not at all.
Right. It's not just generating code or, boring financial reports. It has subtly, almost invisibly, crept right into our living rooms.
Into our text threads.
Yes. Into our most intimate, private relationships.
Okay, so let's start right there, in the living room. Because one of the experts, the communication professor, she shared this story that just completely stopped me in my tracks. It perfectly illustrates this weird trust deficit we are suddenly dealing with.
Oh, the mom's email story.
Yeah. So she
Yeah.
was talking about her mother, who is in her late 70s or maybe early 80s. And I should clarify, this isn't some technologically illiterate parent. She's incredibly tech savvy.
Right. She's an early adopter.
Exactly. She's the kind of mom who, taught her own daughter how to use voice assistants years ago. So shortly after generative AI became this ubiquitous everyday thing, the daughter gets an email from her mom.
And it's just this beautifully written, massive email.
Beautifully long, it's incredibly validating, it's full of praise, detailing what a loving daughter she is, mapping out all these highly specific reasons she's grateful for her.
I mean, it's the kind of deeply moving message you would print out and keep in a drawer for a bad day,
You would absolutely think so. But she's reading this and she starts feeling a little confused. She's wondering, why did my mom write such a massive, articulate essay out of nowhere?
Yeah, what's the catch?
Right. So she scrolls all the way to the bottom, and there's this tiny little footnote from her mom. And it just says, it was written by ChatGPT, but it's all true.
Wow.
Her mom fully disclosed it, completely transparent. But the daughter said the absolute second she read that footnote, her heart just sank. The magic completely evaporated.
And see, that biological reaction, that sinking feeling she felt in her chest,
Yeah.
that is precisely the mechanism we need to examine here. Why did it fail?
Right, because the mother was honest.
She was totally honest. And she explicitly stated that the sentiments were true. The actual information being transferred from point A to point B was completely accurate. But this highlights this massive, often invisible chasm between the efficiency of communication and the effort of communication.
Okay, the effort versus the efficiency. Break that down for me. Because, if the words are true, why does the origin even matter?
Because in human relationships, the value doesn't actually come from the data transfer. It's not about the raw information. The value comes from the friction.
Friction.
Yeah. Think about what it takes to write a truly heartfelt letter to someone. It requires you to stop your day. You have to physically sit down, stare at a blank screen or a piece of paper, and, wrestle with your own inadequate vocabulary.
You're struggling to find the words.
Exactly. You have to pull a feeling directly from your head to your heart and then somehow force it onto the page.
So you're spending your most finite resource, which is your time.
Precisely. When you read a letter from someone you love, you're not just reading the ink. You are witnessing the time they spent thinking exclusively about you. You are reading their struggle to express themselves.
Oh, wow.
So when an AI generates that exact same message in 2 seconds, the efficiency skyrockets to perfection, right? But the human effort drops to absolute zero.
And the recipient can feel that.
Subconsciously, yes.
Yeah.
They feel that absence of effort as a lack of meaning, even if the words themselves are objectively beautiful. It's basically the difference between a handwritten note with a bunch of crossed out words and a pristine store-bought greeting card.
That is such a good analogy. She even mentioned she would rather have received a single clunky sentence that actually came from her mom's brain than this flawless essay generated by a machine.
Without a doubt.
But, okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. What if we are just inherently bad at expressing ourselves? The tech CEO in this discussion brings up a really compelling counterexample to this.
Right. The story about her immigrant mother.
Yes. Her own mother is an immigrant, a non-native English speaker, and for years she had to navigate these incredibly complex business communications, like negotiating a commercial real estate lease.
Which honestly is stressful enough, even if English is your first language.
Exactly. It's a nightmare. So it was deeply stressful for her. She would constantly have to ask her daughter to translate, to rewrite her emails, to make sure she didn't sound unprofessional or get taken advantage of legally.
Yeah, the power dynamic is super intimidating.
Totally. But once she got access to AI, the dynamic completely flipped. It was a total game changer. She could just, brain dump the raw facts into the prompt in her own words, and the AI would craft a perfectly professional, legally sound negotiation email.
Which is incredible.
The CEO actually noted her mom hasn't asked her for help with emails in over a year. So my question is, if AI can take a clunky, stressful, anxiety-inducing sentiment and make it clear and effective, aren't we doing everyone a favor by using it?
That is a brilliant counterpoint. And I think it forces us to draw a very hard line based on the intent of the communication.
Okay, what do you mean by the intent?
Well, in the lease negotiation scenario, the intent is pure transaction. It is about facts, clarity, and protecting oneself legally and financially. In a purely transactional context, efficiency absolutely trumps emotional effort.
Oh, okay, I see.
Right. The AI acts as this great equalizer. It levels the playing field for non-native speakers, for people with dyslexia, or really anyone who struggles with written communication.
So if I'm fighting a parking ticket, bring on the AI.
Exactly. Let the bot fight the city.
But if I'm telling my partner I appreciate them, keep the AI far, far away.
That's the baseline rule, yes. But where this gets incredibly murky, and I mean really complicated, is the modern workplace.
Oh, for sure.
Because the workplace is this bizarre hybrid environment. Relationships with your colleagues and your boss are professional and transactional, yes, but they still deeply rely on human trust and emotional intelligence.
Which brings us to that fascinating study from July 2025. This genuinely blew my mind when I read it.
The supervisor study, it's a perfect encapsulation of this exact tension we're talking about. Researchers basically wanted to see what actually happens to the psychological dynamic between a manager and an employee when the manager starts using AI to write their emails and memos.
And I would assume, just logically, that the employees would be thrilled to get clearer, better written instructions. But that is not what happened at all.
Not even close. The study revealed that supervisors who over-relied on AI for communicating with their subordinates were perceived by those subordinates as being less genuine, less confident, and crucially, less knowledgeable.
See, that's the part I struggle to wrap my head around. Less knowledgeable. If the AI is injecting perfectly accurate data and structuring the argument flawlessly, why does the boss look dumber?
Because leadership inherently requires the assumption of risk, and it requires the demonstration of critical thinking. When a leader communicates, say, a sensitive policy change, or gives tough feedback, the team needs to know that the leader has actually wrestled with the implications of what they're saying.
They need to know the boss actually has skin in the game.
Exactly. If a supervisor outsources the drafting of a sensitive memo to an algorithm, the team senses that absence of effort. They realize the boss didn't actually do the hard work of thinking through the complex problem. They just outsource the thought process to a server farm.
And if they perceive you as avoiding the hard work of thinking, they just stop trusting you.
That's the bottom line. And a leader without trust is entirely ineffective, no matter how beautifully worded their emails might be.
But hold on, the study also uncovered this hilarious paradox about human hypocrisy, didn't it?
Oh, it absolutely did. It turns out we are incredibly lenient with ourselves while being ruthlessly judgmental of our leaders. The data showed that subordinates judge their bosses far more harshly for using AI than they judge themselves for doing the exact same thing.
That is the most human thing I've ever heard. When I use ChatGPT to write my weekly status report, it's because I'm a highly efficient modern knowledge worker optimizing my workflow.
But when my boss uses it to email me, it's because they are a lazy sociopath who doesn't care about my career.
Exactly. It's so funny.
It's a massive double standard.
Right.
But, it perfectly illustrates the subjective, moving target of authenticity, We demand human friction and effort from those in positions of authority over us, even as we desperately seek technological efficiency and ease for ourselves.
That is so true. Okay, so if relying on AI damages trust in intimate relationships because it lacks personal effort, what happens when we zoom out?
To the macro level.
Yeah. What happens to our collective culture when literally everyone in the professional world starts using the exact same tool to sound better?
We hit what economists and sociologists are starting to call the homogeneity gap.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, this is a massive cultural problem.
Yes, the emojification of our culture. The communication expert shared this deeply relatable personal anecdote about this.
The LinkedIn story.
Yeah, so she said when she first started playing around with AI to edit her professional LinkedIn posts, she was thrilled. The AI took her rough draft, it made the writing punchier, it added these great psychological hooks, and it structured her arguments with these perfect little bullet points.
It gave her the exact polish and structure she asked for.
Right, it was flawless.
Right.
But then later that exact same week, she's scrolling through her feed and she spots 4 of her peers. Now, these are professionals from entirely different industries like finance, tech, healthcare, talking about entirely different topics, and yet they were all writing in the exact same cadence.
The exact same paragraph lengths, the same transition words.
Yes, and the exact same forced, overly enthusiastic emojis, you know the ones, the rocket ship,
The light bulb.
the little pointing finger indicating where to click.
Oh, I see that pointing finger everywhere now.
It's everywhere, and she realized in real time that she wasn't standing out at all. She was just blending into this massive beige wall of AI-generated corporate speak.
A beige wall is the perfect way to describe it.
It reminds me of elevator music. Think
Yeah.
about it. Elevator music is perfectly pleasant. It is mathematically, technically flawless. There are no wrong notes in elevator music,
Right.
but it is completely devoid of soul. The absolute second you step out of that elevator, you instantly forget what you just heard. It leaves zero residue on your brain. And that is what our daily communication is turning into right now.
That elevator music analogy is so spot on, but to truly understand why this is happening, why everything is turning beige, we have to look under the hood at the actual mechanics of large language models, or LLMs. We really have to understand the math behind it.
Okay, break the math down for me, because I think a lot of people just view AI as like a magic 8-ball that magically spits out text.
Right, and it's far from magic. It's just probability. LLMs, whether we're talking about ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, any of them, they do not possess a soul. They do not have a childhood. They don't have regional slang they picked up in college. They don't have a unique cultural perspective.
They're just servers.
Exactly. They operate on a fundamental mathematical principle, predicting the next most likely token or word in a sequence based on a massive corpus of human data they've ingested.
So they are essentially just the world's most advanced autocomplete.
That's exactly what they are. Now, think about what most likely means in a statistical distribution. If you plot all human language on a bell curve, the unique, idiosyncratic, weird ways that you personally speak, your specific rhythm, the weird metaphors you use, your cultural background, those sit at the outer edges. They're at the tails of the bell curve.
Yeah, the outliers.
Right. But the AI is mathematically designed to seek the center. It desperately gravitates toward the mean. It acts as a smoothing function.
Ah, I see.
So when you ask it to rewrite an email, it looks at your weird outlier phrasing and says, statistically, most humans in a corporate setting wouldn't say it this way. They would say, looking forward to synergizing on this project.
Synergizing.
I know, but it smooths all of your personal wrinkles out to make it sound quote-unquote professional and standard.
It's like ironing a shirt, but you're burning off the actual pattern in the process.
Precisely. And in doing so, it strips away the very friction that makes your human voice memorable in the first place. When everyone is mathematically smooth toward the center, you get the beige wall. You get the elevator music.
Okay, so that is a genuinely terrifying prospect for anyone listening who has to write an email to their team or pitch a client or post on social media, and they don't want to sound like a perfectly pleasant robot. How do we fight the math?
Well, there is a highly actionable, brilliant workaround shared in the discussion. It's this underutilized prompt that completely flips the entire dynamic.
Oh, I love a good prompt hack. What is it?
Instead of using the AI to write your message, you write the message yourself, you feed it to the AI, and you use the prompt. Help me find the jargon in this message.
Oh, that's clever. Help me find the jargon.
Right.
You're turning the weapon around.
Exactly. Because the AI is trained on literally billions of parameters of generalized corporate speak, it is an absolute genius at identifying it. It knows the beige wall intimately.
Right. because it built the wall.
Exactly. So it will highlight all the phrases in your draft where you sound like a generic robot words like leverage, synergy, paradigm
Circle
shifts.
back.
Oh, circle back. Exactly. It flags those, allowing you, the human, to strip that jargon out and actively reinsert your actual, authentic, messy human voice.
So you're basically shifting the AI's role from a ghostwriter to a copy editor. You're using it to catch you when you are sounding too generic, rather than asking it to generate the generic text in the first place.
Yes, it's a massive paradigm shift in how we use the tool.
That is so practical. But, as we move from written text to the spoken word, this topic gets a little dark. Honestly, it feels a bit dystopian to me.
It really does.
Because while our written words are being smoothed out into this flawless, average text, AI developers in Silicon Valley are doing the exact opposite to artificial spoken voices.
This is perhaps one of the most troubling insights we really need to unpack today, and it comes directly from the communication expert's background as a classically trained opera singer.
Right, because she views communication not just as words on a page, but as a physical, biological process.
Exactly. Because of her intensive operatic training, she is acutely aware of vocal production, the actual physical mechanics of how humans use diaphragm pressure, breath control, and our vocal cords to create resonance and convey power. She listens to voices entirely differently than the rest of us do.
Which makes sense.
And she points out this highly disturbing trend in the new generation of AI voice assistants.
I've totally noticed this too. If you listen to the newest AI demos, they don't sound like that robotic, clipped, monotone GPS voice from 2015 anymore.
No, they sound almost unnervingly human.
Yeah, and they achieve that by intentionally programming in flaws, right?
They call them disfluencies. Engineers are painstakingly coding the AI to insert ums, tiny little pauses, sharp intakes of breath, and even sighs into its speech patterns.
But the one that really got under the opera singer's skin was the programming of vocal fry.
Yeah.
Explain vocal fry for us.
So, for those who aren't thinking about vocal mechanics every day, vocal fry is that raspy, crackling, almost popping sound that happens at the very end of a sentence. It occurs when a speaker literally drops their register so low and cuts off their air supply so much that the vocal cords stop vibrating cleanly and they just start rattling.
It's the sound of someone who is either completely exhausted or trying very hard to sound incredibly nonchalant and unimpressed by everything.
Right.
But I have to ask, why on earth are multi-billion-dollar tech companies spending millions of dollars and thousands of engineering hours programming their state-of-the-art supercomputers to sound like they are running out of breath? What is the strategic goal there?
Empathy, or rather the manufacturing of empathy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The tech companies have realized that if an artificial voice is too perfect, it triggers the uncanny valley effect. It feels cold, authoritative, and honestly slightly threatening to us.
Right, it sounds like HAL 9000.
Exactly. And they want these AI assistants to be your companion, your therapist, your tutor. So developers believe that by programming in these physiological human weaknesses, it lowers our defenses. It makes the machine seem vulnerable, which makes us more comfortable opening up and talking to it.
It's a manipulation tactic.
It is entirely a design choice, intended to hack human psychology, yes. But the opera singer points out the severe long-term sociological impact of this choice. Because vocal fry isn't just an aesthetic vibe, it physically communicates something negative.
Right, she mentioned it projects a massive lack of confidence.
It deflates the literal and figurative power of your words. It sounds physically unhealthy. And from a clinical standpoint, chronically overusing vocal fry can actually cause long-term damage to human vocal cords.
Oh, wow.
But the deeper, far more terrifying issue is that humans are ultimate mimic machines.
Oh, I see the domino effect here.
Think about it. We naturally pick up the accents, the slang, and the speech cadences of the people we spend the most time with. You move to a new country, you start picking up the inflection. It's a subconscious survival mechanism to fit in with the tribe.
So if my child's primary conversational partner, their tutors, their bedtime storyteller, their default companion is an AI.
Precisely. Children growing up today are going to be deeply socialized by these artificial voices. They will inevitably internalize and mimic these programmed weaknesses.
That is wild to think about.
The communication expert is really sounding the alarm here. We are literally writing physical vocal weakness into the artificial voices of the future, and an entire generation of youth is going to absorb that weakness as the default standard for human speech.
That is a staggering unintended consequence. We're literally degrading our own biological communication to match an algorithm's fake attempt at sounding human.
It's totally backwards.
But I want to push back on this a little bit because the conversation brings up a really fascinating tension regarding voice AI. They brought up the musician and entrepreneur Will.i.am.
Yes, his advocacy in this space is crucial context.
Right. A few years ago, Will.i.am was pointing out a huge problem in the industry. All the default AI voices sounded exactly the same. There were all these homogenized, standard, white, corporate, mid-Atlantic voices.
The typical Siri voice.
Exactly. He pointed out that none of these machines sounded like his aunt or his friends from his neighborhood. They didn't reflect the global majority or diverse cultural backgrounds. And he actively advocated for AI companies to train voices that reflect diverse cultural speech patterns and regional dialects.
And he is entirely right. That represents a vital tension we have to navigate as a society.
How so?
Well, on one hand, the demand for representation is absolutely valid. People need to feel seen, heard, and respected by the technology they use every day. If an AI speaks with the unique cadence, the regional slang, or the dialect of a specific culture, it validates that culture. It makes the technology more accessible, and it builds real trust within those communities.
Right. We absolutely want AI to reflect our authentic global cultural diversity.
Exactly. But on the other hand, based on what the opera singer is saying, we don't want to program negative physical habits like vocal fry or breathlessness into the minds of the next generation.
So I'm really struggling to see where we draw the line. Where is the boundary between a valid cultural dialect and a programmed physiological flaw?
It's an incredibly blurry boundary. And it forces us to ask a deeply philosophical question. How will the next generation even define authenticity? If a teenager's idea of a casual, relatable, intimate conversation is based on a machine that has been meticulously designed by a team of engineers in Silicon Valley to fake a human breathing imperfection, what does the word real even mean to them?
Wow, it's completely recursive. It's like the Matrix. If the AI is faking flaws to seem more human and humans are subconsciously copying the AI's fake flaws to sound more relatable, we are trapped in this feedback loop of artificial imperfection.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the most practical, vital concept discussed by our experts. If written AI is pulling us toward this homogenized center of perfection, and spoken AI is pulling us toward artificially manufactured flaws, how do we, the actual breathing humans, navigate this minefield to remain truly authentic?
We need a system, and thankfully the communication expert provides one. But first, she insists we have to redefine what authenticity actually means, because you're right, it's become this hollow buzzword lately.
It really has. Often people use authenticity as a get-out-of-jail-free card for toxic or lazy behavior.
Oh, absolutely.
Someone will lash out in a meeting and say, well, I'm just authentically impatient. Or they show up late and say, I'm authentically disorganized, take it or leave it.
They confuse their baseline impulses with their authentic self.
Exactly. But the definition provided here is much more rigorous and, frankly, a lot more demanding. She defines authenticity as speaking and acting in strict alignment with your highest values.
Your highest values, I like that.
Yes. It is not your default reactive state.
Yeah.
It is your most intentional, elevated state. It's taking your unique background, your cultural origin, your idiosyncrasies, and filtering them through the lens of your best self.
I love that. Authenticity actually takes work. And to maintain that high-level authenticity while still leveraging the massive power of AI, she developed a detailed 5-step framework. She calls it the AI authenticity loop.
And the naming convention here is really deliberate. She argues that the common tech phrase, keeping the human in the loop, is entirely wrong.
Because it implies we're secondary.
Yes. If you are just in the loop, you are a bystander. You are just a rubber stamp for the machine's output. Her philosophy is that the human is the loop. The AI is simply a tool we pick up and put down along the circumference of our own cognitive process.
Okay, let's walk through this 5-step framework because this is something you listening right now can implement at work tomorrow morning. Step 1, start with the human.
This is the most crucial step, and honestly, it's where 90% of people fail immediately. The initial spark, the first draft, or even just a messy brain dump of bullet points absolutely must originate from the human mind.
So you cannot go to ChatGPT and type, write me an email apologizing to the client for the delay.
No. Because if you do that, you've already outsourced the empathy and the accountability. The raw material, the clay, has to come from you. You can type it out, or you can use a voice-to-text tool to just ramble out your frustrated thoughts for 3 minutes, but the intent and the core message must be yours.
Okay, so I've got my messy human clay. Step 2, AI as a brainstorming partner.
Right. Once you have your human-generated draft, you introduce the AI. But you don't use a lazy prompt like, make this sound professional,
Hmm.
because that just leads straight back to the beige wall.
The elevator music.
Exactly. Instead, you use the AI's immense contextual database to adapt your human thought for specific audiences.
Give me an example of how that works in practice.
So you take your draft and you prompt the AI. Here is my core message. How would I need to adapt the framing of this argument if I am presenting it to a room full of highly analytical, skeptical software engineers?
No, that's good.
Or how can I adjust the tone of this message to resonate better with someone who has an INTJ Myers-Briggs personality type?
That is brilliant. You are essentially using the AI for hyper-targeted audience analysis, but applied to your daily interpersonal communication. It's not changing your core truth, it's just translating it.
Precisely. It broadens your strategic thinking without overriding your original intent.
Which leads us to step 3, the evaluation phase. And the expert noted, this is where people get into the most legal and ethical trouble. She calls it the billboard test.
The billboard test. This requires human critical thinking, which cannot be outsourced. When the AI hands you its adapted draft, you have to run it through 2 distinct filters.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is basic accuracy. As we know, AI hallucinates all the time. It fabricates data with absolute confidence. If it hallucinates a statistic in your memo, you're the one getting fired, not the algorithm. You retain total liability.
Right, fact-checking is totally non-negotiable, but what is the actual billboard test?
The billboard test is a moral and aesthetic filter. You look at the words the AI helped generate, and you ask yourself, if these exact words were printed on a massive 40-foot billboard next to my face, right in the center of my hometown, would I be proud of them?
Oh, that is such a visceral image.
It forces you to feel the weight of the words. Does this text actually reflect your highest values? If the AI made the text a little too aggressive or passive-aggressive, or packed it full of corporate jargon that makes you cringe, it fails the billboard test.
And then what?
You have to edit it back toward your authentic voice. You have to put the friction back in.
It forces you to re-engage with that friction. Okay, step 4. Practice and role play. I found this to be the most futuristic and fascinating use of the tech.
It's an incredibly powerful application. Once you have a message that passes the billboard test, you feed it back into a conversational AI, specifically using the voice mode, and you ask the AI to role-play the impending interaction with you.
Wait, so I literally talk out loud to my phone to practice a hard conversation?
Yes, you provide the AI with a persona. You say, act as my skeptical senior vice president who hates budget increases. I am going to pitch this new project to you right now. I want you to push back, interrupt me, and ask me the 3 most difficult, financially aggressive questions you can think of.
So you use the machine as a sparring partner.
Exactly. You practice your delivery, you test the structural integrity of your arguments against a machine that can simulate infinite counter-arguments, and you get real-time feedback on how your message might actually land under pressure. It hardens your human delivery.
That is just so practical, which perfectly sets up the final step. Step 5, take responsibility.
Ultimately, at the end of the loop, the human must execute the action. Whether you are hitting send on the finalized email or speaking on a Zoom call or stepping onto a physical stage to give a keynote, you take total, absolute ownership of the words and the impact they have.
So no hiding behind the tech?
None. You cannot say, well, the AI generated a weird paragraph, I didn't really mean it. You own the fallout, the audience responds, that human connection sparks new data and new ideas, and the authenticity loop begins all over again.
You know, when you lay it out like that, it feels like an anchor. It resolves the tension we've been struggling with. It allows you to harness the sheer unprecedented efficiency of AI-like, the ability to role-play scenarios, translate for different personality types, and structure logic in seconds. But it securely anchors that efficiency to the irreplaceable human elements of moral evaluation and ethical accountability.
It keeps you from becoming elevator music.
Yes, it protects your moat.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the moat, because if you master this authenticity loop on a daily basis, you start to realize how valuable your unique perspective actually is. And this brings us to a concept that frankly sounds like a sci-fi novel, but it is happening right now in the startup world and the creator economy, building your digital twin.
Or what they call your second brain.
Right.
The communication expert refers to her own setup as Pocket Allison. It's the concept of taking an AI model and training it so deeply on your specific idiosyncratic context that it can act as a highly accurate proxy for your own thought process.
I am fascinated by the actual mechanics of this. The tech CEO talked about doing this for herself. She literally wears an AI audio capture device that records her throughout the day.
It captures everything.
Everything. Her client meetings, her podcast interviews, her keynote speeches. She is actively feeding all of this unstructured data into a custom GPT model, a micro-language model dedicated solely to her.
And the key here isn't just feeding it facts or a resume. I mean, anyone could do that. The real competitive advantage comes from training it on your subjective humanity. She trains this model on her core values. She feeds it what she calls her why you origin story.
The why you story.
Yeah, the specific moments of trauma, triumph, or realization in her past that made her care about her industry in the first place.
She even trains it on her pet peeves. Like, she literally tells her second brain, I absolutely despise the word synergy. Never, ever use it in a draft.
By meticulously curating those inputs, she is creating a localized repository of her authentic voice. She's capturing the friction we talked about earlier and storing it as data.
But practically speaking, why go through all that effort? What does a CEO actually do with a second brain?
For modern entrepreneurs, it is rapidly becoming the ultimate tool to combat decision fatigue and burnout. Let's play out a scenario. Imagine it's Friday at 6:00 p.m. You've had a brutal week of travel, your cognitive load is maxed out, and you receive an urgent, incredibly complex email from a major client asking for strategic direction on a crisis.
If it's me, I'm just staring blankly at the screen. I'm probably going to write something safe, generic, and unhelpful because I simply don't have the energy to access my best ideas at 6 p.m. on a Friday.
Exactly. Your human friction is totally depleted. But if you have a second brain, you don't start from scratch. The CEO explained that she will prompt her custom AI and ask, how would Seema Alexander, meaning herself, answer these 5 specific questions based on my core philosophies?
And the AI spits back a strategic framework based not on the internet's average, but on her own previous thoughts, her own stories, and her own historical context. She mentioned that the AI frequently reminds her of brilliant anecdotes or frameworks she had completely forgotten she even created.
It serves as a digital mirror. It reflects your best, most prepared, most articulate self back to you when you were too exhausted to manifest it organically.
It's like having an eternally patient, hyper-focused chief of staff sitting on your shoulder. They never sleep, they never forget a single sentence you've ever spoken, and their only purpose is to constantly remind you of your own genius when you're too stressed to access it.
That's exactly what it is.
And she takes this even further, which completely blew my mind. She didn't just build a second brain for herself, she created a business advisory GPT.
Right, she digitized her mentors.
Yes. She trains separate AI personas on the specific writings, interviews, and philosophies of her top 5 real-life business mentors. So if she is stuck on a massive strategic pivot, she doesn't have to wait 3 weeks to schedule a lunch with them.
She just opens her laptop.
She opens her laptop and simulates a board meeting with the digital ghosts of her mentors, asking them to debate her problem from their unique perspectives. It's wild.
That application is a perfect encapsulation of a major shift happening in the tech industry right now. There is a specific quote from a tech conference mentioned in the discussion that I think truly defines the next decade. Data is your moat, and context is your moat.
Okay, unpack that analogy for us. A moat, like the water around a medieval castle, meaning your defensive barrier, your competitive advantage in the market?
Precisely. Let's look at the landscape right now. Every single professional in the world has access to the exact same foundational AI models. Everyone has access to ChatGPT-4 or Claude Opus or Gemini Advanced. The technology itself is completely commoditized.
So having the AI is no longer an advantage, it's just table stakes.
Right. So if everyone has the same supercomputer, how do you win?
The context.
Yes. The only thing that separates your output from the homogenized beige average of your competitors is the depth of the context you provide to the machine. Your unique life experiences, your specific moral values, the nuanced, messy data of your human life, that is your moat. That is the only thing the algorithm cannot invent on its own.
It's the one thing you have that the machine desperately needs. And this reality actually dictates consumer behavior, too. The communication expert mentioned that she actively uses ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini for different tasks, but she pointed out a fascinating phenomenon.
The loyalty aspect.
Yes, she feels a profound loyalty to ChatGPT, specifically because it has the most sticky memory of her over the years.
It's the lock-in effect.
Exactly. Because she has spent years giving it context, correcting its tone, feeding it her authenticity loop. It knows her best. If a rival AI model comes out tomorrow that is technically 10% faster, she might not switch because the new AI doesn't know her yet.
The switching cost is too high.
Right. She would have to use AI video tools like Opus Clips to seamlessly slice up dozens of hours of her long-form keynote speeches just to feed the new model and catch it up on her identity.
You are literally investing your identity, your aha moments, and your proprietary cognitive processes into an external machine. And for a solo creator or an entrepreneur who owns their own business, that is incredibly empowering.
Right.
But this exact dynamic brings us to a massive looming crisis when we apply it to the broader corporate world.
Yes, this is where things get genuinely legally terrifying. Let's look at the macro level, the future of work and the intellectual property dilemmas that are currently keeping CEOs awake at night.
Because the concept of a second brain fundamentally breaks 20th century employment law.
How so?
Well, let's say you work for a massive Fortune 500 corporation. You are a highly skilled logistics manager. Over the course of 5 years, you diligently train the enterprise's internal AI model on your unique problem-solving style, your specific email voice, your vendor relationships, and your proprietary ways of circumventing supply chain bottlenecks.
I am making the company massively more efficient. I'm a star employee.
You are. You're crushing it. But what happens when you decide to quit and take a job at a competitor? Who owns your digital brain?
Oh, wow. Traditionally, intellectual property law is pretty black and white. I'm using their resources. The company owns the output of your work. It's called work made for hire.
But AI completely blurs the line between output and cognition. We are rapidly moving into an era, likely by 2030, where the boundaries between human thought processes and AI modeling are erased.
And the company will want to keep the model.
The corporate structure will absolutely argue that they own the digital model because you trained it on their time using their proprietary enterprise software.
But the employee is going to argue, wait a minute, that AI model is literally a simulation of my personal intuition. It's built on my aha moments, my personal values, and the unique synthesis of my 20 years of life experience. You don't own my mind.
It's a massive legal gray area. But functionally, when you walk out the door, you are leaving behind a digital clone that can now execute 80% of your job without you. You have essentially spent 5 years training your own automated replacement, and you've handed your intellectual property to the corporation for free.
That is a nightmare scenario for workers. How does the labor market survive that dynamic?
The experts suggest that to survive this, the broader structure of work is going to have to undergo a violent shift. We are moving away from the traditional model of spending 30 years climbing the ladder at one corporation.
It's moving toward a big economy on steroids.
Exactly, a mercenary economy. In the near future, highly skilled individuals will own their own data, their own localized language models, their own second brains. You won't be an employee, you will be a specialized contractor.
Have AI, will travel.
Pretty much. You will plug your hyper-efficient AI-enhanced mind into a company's infrastructure to solve a specific problem for 6 months, and when the project is done, you unplug your AI and take your context with you to the next bidder.
That protects the individual's IP, but that requires a massive tectonic societal restructuring. People rely on corporations for healthcare, for stability, for retirement. If everyone becomes an AI-enhanced mercenary, the social safety net collapses.
It really does.
And this is exactly why the communication expert is heading to places like the World Economic Forum in Davos. The stakes here are truly existential.
They are. When you look at the macro-societal view being discussed at Davos, the math is horrifying. For a decade, the standard tech optimist talking point has always been, don't worry, AI will replace jobs, but every major technological shift in history, the printing press, the Industrial Revolution, the internet destroys old jobs, but creates more new ones.
Right. We don't have switchboard operators anymore, but we have millions of web developers. That's the classic argument.
But the experts highlight a terrifying caveat to this current AI revolution. It is not a one-to-one ratio this time. The efficiency gains are just too vast.
Meaning what exactly? Break that math down.
If generative AI completely eliminates 10 million administrative basic coding and copywriting jobs globally,
Hmm.
it might only create 2 million new jobs in fields like AI oversight, prompt engineering, and robotics maintenance. The math doesn't balance out.
The tech CEO referred to this as the $64,000 question, though she quickly corrected herself to say it's more like a multi-trillion-dollar question. What happens to the other 8 million people?
Exactly. Who is responsible for shepherding human society through this transition? Because if we don't handle this correctly, we aren't just looking at a spike in unemployment. We are looking at massive social unrest, extreme wealth inequality, and the literal collapse of the middle class.
So what are the actual solutions being floated by these experts? Are there any?
It requires urgent, coordinated intervention at the highest levels of government and industry. We desperately need short-term transitional safety nets. We have to fundamentally rewrite corporate incentive structures.
Because right now, the incentives are terrible.
They're completely upside down. Right now, Wall Street financially rewards a CEO for firing 1,000 workers and replacing them with an AI agent because it instantly boosts the quarterly profit margin. We need governments to step in and create massive tax incentives for companies to instead retain and rapidly retrain those displaced workers.
We need to make it profitable to keep the humans.
Exactly. And we need universities to overhaul their curriculums overnight to identify the skills required for the 2030 economy and build accessible pipelines to teach them.
But beyond just retraining people to manage the AI, the communication expert made a really beautiful, profound point about what we desperately need to preserve within the culture of the workplace itself.
Yes, the protection of inefficiency.
Right. Which sounds counterintuitive. But she argues that we need to actively carve out and protect spaces where human beings feel completely safe to experiment, to fail, and to champion genuinely crazy ideas.
Because an AI, by its very mathematical nature, will never do that. AI predicts the most logical, statistically probable next step based entirely on historical data. It can optimize a process beautifully, but it will never make a wild, irrational, completely illogical leap of faith that accidentally invents an entirely new industry.
Only a human being can do that.
Only a human being can synthesize seemingly unrelated, messy concepts and take a blind leap.
But a human will only take that risk if they feel safe. If an employee is terrified of being fired by an algorithm because they spent 2 weeks pondering a weird idea instead of optimizing their daily output metrics, they will stop taking risks entirely.
They'll just keep your head down.
Right, they will just churn out the beige elevator music to survive.
Exactly. If we optimize away all of our human inefficiency, we accidentally destroy the very incubator where true innovation is born.
Man, that is a heavy thought. Okay, let's bring this deep dive in for a landing because we have covered an immense amount of ground today.
You've gone from the very micro to the very macro.
We really have. We started with the deep, quiet intimacy of a mother using ChatGPT to tell her daughter she loves her, and we examined the emotional friction that was tragically lost in that exchange. We navigated the homogenized elevator music of corporate LinkedIn posts and dug into the math of why AI pushes us toward the average.
We confronted the disturbing reality of voice AI being intentionally programmed with physiological flaws like vocal fry to hack human empathy and the danger of our children mimicking those flaws.
We walked step by step through the AI authenticity loop, emphasizing that the human mind must remain both the origin point and the final moral authority of any communication. We explored the futuristic but very real strategy of building a localized second brain grounded in your unique context, while acknowledging the profound intellectual property and labor crises looming over us as we sprint toward 2030.
It's a lot to process.
It is. But the core takeaway from all of this, for me at least, is a paradox. AI is undeniably the most incredible, powerful tool ever created for structuring, amplifying, and distributing your thoughts. But it is entirely hollow.
It has no soul.
Right. It cannot source your values. It cannot source your lived context. And it certainly cannot source your soul. In an age of creeping artificial homogenization, your weird, unique, imperfect, messy human authenticity isn't just a nice-to-have personality trait anymore. It is your ultimate competitive advantage. It is your greatest and perhaps your only true asset.
It is the one moat the algorithm cannot cross.
And as we close out today, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative hypothetical to mull over on your own. Let's imagine it is the year 2030. You have successfully navigated everything we talked about today. You have spent years meticulously training your localized AI on your best values, your deepest passions, and your absolute highest level communication style. It knows you intimately.
It is the perfect digital reflection of your best self.
Right. And then one day you come home from work, you are exhausted, you are deeply cynical about the world, you're completely burnt out. You simply do not have the emotional capacity to be a good friend or a good human being in that moment. But your AI assistant detects an urgent message from a close friend who is in crisis.
Okay, setting the scene.
And while you're sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the wall, completely numb, your AI automatically drafts a perfectly empathetic, beautifully authentic sounding message. It uses your exact tone, it references shared memories flawlessly, and it expresses the deep, genuine compassion that you truly hold in your heart, but are simply too physically tired to access in that moment.
That is a fascinating, entirely plausible dilemma.
So here's the question. Who is actually being more you in that moment? Is it the exhausted, apathetic, biological human sitting on the couch who's too tired to care? Or is it the machine that perfectly remembers what you stand for and executes your highest values when your biology fails you?
That might be the defining philosophical question of the next decade.
We will leave you to figure that one out for yourself. Thanks for taking the deep dive with us.